Mine, you're making some money in the stock market, and then all of a sudden stocks crash, okay? So you just lost all your money. Now, you might want to go to your local bank and say, hey, I need my money. You start taking out your money. That bank is like, oh no, we don't have any more money, collapses. That means that anybody who has money in there just lost their money. And at that time, there was no organization that would give you your money back. So you have $10,000 in that bank account, you just lost $10,000. Yeah, tough luck. And so that happened to a lot of people, which meant that a lot of people had tough luck. And the government, after that, decided, well, you know what, we need to have a better system for this. And if banks fail, then people need to get their money back. So the FDIC does exactly that. And actually, I'm going to look up if I can find a little more information about that, because that would be a good slide maybe to include in my next presentation. Now, if you have a bank account, then what are some of the things you can, what are the two different types of accounts you might have at a bank? So there's savings and there's
savings. There's savings and then there's what?
Wait, deposits? A check account?
There's a savings account and there's a checking account. So why would you use a checking account for?
If somebody writes a check, that if you write a check to somebody, they can give it to them, and then the money is in your bank goes to him.
Very good. A checking account, you use that to write checks. So have you ever seen your parents write a check, or have you seen your parents' checkbook or something? Raise your hand if you have. So maybe your parents have written checks. I am lucky enough to have a checking account, which means that I can occasionally write checks. I don't do it very often. But what would you use checks for?
Pay your bills.
Pay your bills. Very good. You use checks to pay your bills. You get the utility bill, you get the credit card bill. You use checks for that. So you might see, and you can also use checks in everyday life. Like for instance, if you want to pay at the grocery store. More people use credit cards, but you still use checks occasionally for that kind of thing. Now, you also use checks for charitable donations quite often if you're mailing it in. So, for instance, I do trick-or-treat for UNICEF every year, the United Nations Children's Fund. And my parents write off a check, or I write a check, I forget who does it exactly every year, and we send it off to UNICEF. Most recently, I also raised almost $700 for Save the Children's Haiti Relief Fund, and so I was able to write off the check. So checks can be really handy, and that is what you would use a checking account for. And savings accounts, as you can tell by the title, are where you put your money to save. Oh, and by the way, the FDIC, as we were talking about earlier, FDIC stands for Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I just wanted to look that up. Okay, so we know where we save money, we know how we save money. So what are some things that you have learned from this session about money? Raise your hand if you'd like to tell me.
What have we learned about money today?